Welcome to the Game of Life podcast, where we bring you inspiring softball stories, insightful tips from coaches and players, and explore how the game transcends its boundaries to become a metaphor for life. Whether you're a sports enthusiast, a casual fan, or someone just looking for inspiration, you're in for a treat. We'll unravel the tales that go beyond the scoreboard. Discover how perseverance and hard work on the field translates into resilience in your daily challenges. Learn about teamwork, leadership, and the unwavering spirit that fuels success, not just in sports, but in the game of life. Here we are, episode 7, Alli?
Yeah.
And it was time for a guest, so we thought long and hard who we should get, and I think you should introduce this one.
Yeah. So this is KK Alvarez. She was my teammate at Binghamton. Very special person in my life. Very big impact on me, role model for me. So with that, I want to turn it over to her to let her introduce herself.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks for having me. Alli is one of my favorite people at the top up there.
You too, KK. Too.
Yeah, but she reached out and asked if I wanted to come on the podcast, and I was excited. So, just to introduce myself a little bit, I'm Michaela. People call me KK. That's still what I go by. And I played with Alli in college. Starting off a little bit, I started softball at a very young age and just fell in love with it. So did the whole high school thing, went through the recruiting process with travel ball, ended up at Binghamton and had the best time of my life there. So pretty awesome journey. I loved it every step of the way.
Yeah, we're a little biased, but we love BU. Go BU, shout out. No, and you're from California, so do you want to talk a little bit about what that was like, that transition, moving away from home, things like that?
Yeah, so I didn't know at first that I wanted to travel far for college. I kind of just like left it up and I was like, you know what, wherever I'm supposed to be, I'm supposed to be. So ended up being recruited and I was like, oh, New York. It's a little scary. Never been over there.
Yeah.
A
little colder.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, too cold over here. But I ended up taking the visit and fell in love with it. So moving away from, I don't have any family in New York, but moving away was hard at first, but then everyone at Binghamton turned into family like instantly. So I loved it over there. I tell everybody now, like, if I could live there, I would go live over there.
Really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah. I would. I love it.
Even with all the snow?
I think I can handle it because after like year 4, it took a while, but I got used to the snow.
Yeah. I was gonna say I can't even count the number of times KK would be like, it's so cold.
Oh yeah. Every day. It was just like a shock, especially in April when it'd be snowing. And I was like,
she's like genuinely mad. She's like, what the heck? What's
Yeah.
Telling us what the temperature is in California. I'm like, KK,
I would.
That's not helping us.
I look it up every time. I'm like, it's literally 90 at home. What is happening?
KK, how old were you when you started playing softball? Did you want to play? Did your parents just say you're playing?
I honestly think my parents just threw me in t-ball. So because my dad grew up playing, so that's kind of just where I started. I don't ever remember like that conversation of like, oh yeah, I want to play. But he threw me in, and it was just awesome, and I just kept going. I remember my first softball team I was on, so that was awesome. My dad was actually the coach, so just trained all the time with him, and it just kept going.
Yeah.
What do you remember a specific point in time where you're like, I really want to play. I want to travel. I want to play at a high level. I want to go to college. Or did you just love the game and not think about those things?
I think I did. I noticed it when I was in about 5th or 6th grade. The conversation came up about travel ball with the coach I had at the time. And I was like, Mom, Dad, like, I really want to play. And they're like, hold on. This was before, like, travel ball started super young. So they're like, just wait till 8th grade. Like, it's going to get serious then. So I would, like, write on everything. I was like, oh, I get to play travel ball when I'm in 8th grade. And I was just, like, so excited.
Yeah.
Like, all my friends were playing, and I was like, I'm, like, excited. So that's when I started playing. And then ever since then, when college came into the talk, I was just like, oh, yeah, that's my goal. Like, that's the next step. And I just loved it. So that was what I went after.
I always like asking people this too. What do you love most about the game of softball? Or like what made you want to pursue it at a young age? Because, and we'll get into this too, I think the older you get and the harder it gets, sometimes you forget it's supposed to be fun and we
Yeah.
love it. So for you, what was that kind of one or two things that just made you be like, yeah, I really want to do this?
I think I just like enjoyed the like competitive feeling, like going out there and like playing for a purpose. And then also like whenever, whether it's training, whether it's a game, like that's all I thought about. So it was kind of just like a mental refresh for me. And I think I just like love the process of that. So those two things just drove me there.
It's like a way to reset your mind a little bit or
Yeah.
clear your head.
Yeah, kind of just like a breath of fresh air. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I needed that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's similar for me too. I always loved being able to go to practice and just whatever was going on in my day. It's okay, I can forget about it for at least the next 2 hours and
Yeah.
then well, maybe I'll have a fresh perspective on it by then of what I'm gonna do.
Oh yeah. It was great at that. And we've talked about that before too. We're just like, you want to just go do this and go
Yeah.
make a little bit? Like, I think we need it.
Me and Kate a number of times in college we'd be texting and be like, I have this to do, I have this to do. Okay, wanna go get ice cream?
Yeah.
And we're like, okay.
That person.
Yeah.
I think it's listen, there's a secret on this podcast, KK, that I never played softball. Okay.
Oh, wow, really?
That's what
Yeah,
I
I
said.
know.
I'm like, I feel
I
gypped. I
know
never
everybody has the same response, but I used to always tell Allie, I mean, you guys, what you did in college wasn't normal, but I think you felt like it was normal because you're around people doing the same thing. Now that you're out of college, do you feel like you stressed over things you shouldn't have, or was it that hard and you just learned some valuable lessons?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I think there's like some moments where I'm like, don't be so stressed about it. Like, live in the moment of those things. But I also think it's like, it was a crazy experience where you learn a ton of things. And that's day in and day out. So overall, I look back and I'm like, I shouldn't have stressed about those things or like thought too much about them because I didn't want to take the moment for granted. So looking back at that, I don't know. I guess that's just like the take on it. Like, don't take those moments. Like speaking to any other athletes, don't take those moments for granted because it's quick. It goes by super quick.
Yeah, and I
How
think too, like when you're in that moment, those things are really, really important to you. And obviously now looking back that you've gotten through them, it's easier to say, oh, that wasn't that big a deal. But when you're in the moment, like it's a huge deal because that's your life at the time. So now like it's just a different type of hard once you graduate. Like it's not, oh, my body hurts from practice. It's, oh, I have this due at work and I have to like I have this big presentation. It's just a different type of hard, I would say.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
how 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 much different was it from what you thought college softball would be like to what it actually was?
I think it was pretty different. I think like before going, I never like processed like how much went into it. So being there, like I knew it was gonna be hard work. But going there and just like you said, like after feeling how tired your body was and like you still have to go to class, you still have to get everything done. You gotta travel, you gotta do all this. Like it was a lot. So looking back at that, I like sometimes I'm like amazed like that's something like we were able to accomplish and like go through. Because it was hard, but it was very rewarding also.
what advice would you have for people who want to play in college to help them prepare for that level?
I would so what something I tell my girls now, because I'm coaching at the high school, I tell them like you have to be determined and disciplined, motivated in order to want to get to that level. It's not something where you can pick and choose like, you know what, I think I want to practice today or I think I want to do this today. Like
Yeah.
it's discipline and it takes a lot of that to want to get to that level, especially playing at a very high level. And I think that if that's something that they notice or recognize at an early age, like it's only going to build their skill, their mindset, and that's something that's going to go with them forever. And that's in softball and life. So I think just staying motivated during that process, that's something they could always use.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And how important to you do you think just loving the game to be able to play at that level? Like I mean I know what the answer you're gonna say, but do you want to just talk about that for a little bit too? Because I know that's an important piece.
Yeah, no, I personally think that's huge. because there's going to be times when it gets hard and tiring, and sometimes like when you're going through a little bad little week or month or whatever it is, like you start to question a lot of things, but that love and passion for the game is kind of what brings you back to it. And that's something you have to take with you, because if you're not enjoying it throughout the process, there's a lot you're missing out on. So I think you need that in order to drive you. Waking up at 5 a.m. for lifts and all that, that's not fun for most people. But
Yeah.
if you love the process of it and love playing the game, like it's all worth it in the end.
Yeah. And one thing I've always loved about KK too is I feel like we're both or just try to be pretty positive people. So we would always talk about in college too, like, okay, this is something we get to do, not something we have to do. Just remembering that it's a privilege to do what we do. And but I think that becomes hard if you don't really love the game, like deep down, because then it feels like something you have to do. It feels like a job. Whereas we would say, hey, like I get to go to 5 a.m. lift today in our awesome weight room with a team that I love.
100%. And even going off of Alli, like Alli was someone I went to because I knew she was always going to be positive about whatever situation it was. And I think it's also so important to have those people around you who
Mhm.
stay positive through it. Because even when you get in your own head, like those people and your teammates, whoever it is you go to, like those are the people that push you to want to keep going as well.
Yeah, because there's always people who are going to have something negative to say. Like if you're looking for a negative thing in your day, you're going to find it. If you're looking for a positive thing, you're going to find it. So you want to go to people who are going to find the positive in everything that you're doing, because negativity is draining as heck, especially at 5 in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I remember something your sister Jenna says, Allie, that I use in practice a lot when kids are whining or complaining. It's, do you want sympathy or do you want a solution to the situation, right? And it depends what type of person you lean on. So if you don't have that person or teammate or group of teammates that are leading you in the right direction, it's going to take you in a downward spiral, isn't it?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think just having those close connections too with people, because I mean, I'm not perfect. I would complain some days too, but it's having people be like, dude, stop. Stop being dramatic. And I'm like, okay, you're right.
It's like a little reality check.
Yeah. Stop complaining. Okay, you're right, KK.
Got it.
So I know you coach high school, Allie. You give a lot of lessons and coach help out a younger travel team. How do you both help the athlete, the softball player that's struggling with the whole concept of failure? Like they're great and they're all happy, and then when things don't go their way, they just change. Like, is there a process to deal with that, or do you just learn to deal with it?
I think it's kind of like a process. So especially in the game of softball, like you have to remind your girls, like it's a game of failure. Like a 300 batting average is awesome, right? But you're only succeeding 3 times out of 10. Um, so reminding them of that, but also building their confidence through it is huge. So they have to, if they don't have confidence in the game, it's so easy to get in your head. But you can take those moments of failure and learn from it. So if they have that in their mentality and they're working on that and they're like, you know what, this didn't work, but they're going to keep persevering through it. I think that's what builds their mindset, especially in a game of failure, to help them get to where they want to be and keep that positive mindset for themselves and their teammates.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more too. And I think the other thing is you can't just do a one size fits all of like, okay, guys, this is how we all deal with failure, because it looks different on everybody. And when I think back to playing with KK, she was always very stoic. And like I admired that about her because, and I really do, I don't know if she knows that, but she really was like, I could not tell if she was having a good game or a bad game based on her body language. And that's honestly really rare in our sport. Whereas for some people, it looks different. Like KK just needed a minute sometimes. I needed an answer right away of like, what did I do? I'm very analytical. I needed that. Some people need criticism. Some people need love, consoling. Like it's different. And I think girls need to figure that out for themselves too, what they actually need in that moment.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I want to talk about criticism for a minute. You're used to it probably in travel ball and in high school ball, but if you're getting recruited, you're pretty successful at the game, right? When you get to college, how did you deal with the criticism, or how important is it to take it constructively, or don't some players? I guess it's a pretty vague question what I'm asking, but it's going to happen, right? You're going to have coaches that probably treat you a little different at times than when you got recruited. So how do you deal with that?
I think that's a huge thing. And I think that's also something that's important to learn when you're younger. That when whether it's coaches or teammates or someone who's giving you criticism, like for the most part, they're doing it because they want to see you do better. It's not to tear you down in any way. It's to help you build because they see potential in you. Um, so I think when players grasp that idea and they run with it, they start having conversations. And I know like Alli would say that all the time, like, what did you mean by that? And I know she's brought it up before, but like if you know you're someone who like doesn't know how to take that, like ask, like right then and there, so there's no questions behind it. Like what did you mean by that? Oh, I don't know whether it was the tone or the words you used. Like I don't know what you meant by it. Like help me understand it. And I think that's huge, and especially huge in college because there's always going to be something you can work on. Like there's no perfect player, there's no perfect person. So acknowledging that and accepting that is something that can only take you farther.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that piece is huge of knowing that it's coming from a place of someone wanting you to be better and not trying to put you down in any way. And I think one thing that happens a lot is you get criticism and immediately like defensiveness is your reaction, trying to defend yourself instead of taking literally 5, 10 seconds to say, is there any validity in what they just said? Instead, we're just so offended by them telling me what to do. We just immediately shut down. So I think my biggest advice would just be take 5 seconds before you respond and just think where they're coming from. And sometimes it doesn't come out well on people, right? Like we talked about delivery, it could be better. So you have to try to take what they say and not how they say it because sometimes I'm like, whoa, that did not come out good. But I get what you're saying.
Yes.
So now that you're both on the other side and officially retired, right? I don't want to get sappy and sad. I know you miss it.
I
Uh,
know.
what advice would you give to high school kids trying to get recruited?
I would say just love the journey of it, right? Go out and give your all every time because you really don't know when it's going to be your last game, what's going to happen during whatever. But love the process of it because it's an awesome feeling personally to me. And if they stick with that and like I said, stay disciplined through it, that's something that's going to stand out. And especially during the recruiting process, which is something I tell my girls I coach as well too. Like you have to learn how to be a good teammate. A lot of the times, coaches who are recruiting you, sure you can be a great player. You could bat 500 that game or make all the defensive plays that came to you. But they also look at how good of a teammate you are and how you react when you're not doing well. Um, so I think that's important for them to know as well that every little aspect that is brought up or talked about, that is what coaches are looking for and seeing a great player, whether they're coachable, whether they respond well. It's all the little things like that.
I couldn't agree more. And going back to that process piece too, I think that's huge because you think about your softball career, you start out, then you say, okay, I need to make the travel team. Okay, after now I need to make my high school. Now I need to get recruited. Now I need to start in college. Now we want to win that. If you don't like slow down and actually enjoy the process, you're just racing to whatever goal is next. And then next thing you know, 3 years are behind you, 6 years are behind you, and you're not necessarily enjoying the moment. So I definitely resonate with that KK about just loving the process and being a good teammate. That's huge.
All right, how important is it to play multiple positions or just be an athlete in the game? Because I hear a lot of kids, I trick younger kids especially like, oh, what do you play? And they start rattling off positions. I'm like, no, you just say you play softball. Doesn't matter. Just go play. I think that gets lost sometimes. Was that something you dealt with, or were you just always at position A, or did you train in multiple positions?
No, I love that. And I feel like that also goes off being coachable because when a coach sees an athlete who can help in any part of the field, like that is such a positive thing for the team. Personally, in my experience, I played a little bit of everywhere. So when I was younger, I played second base and third base, and then I moved to shortstop. And then my last year travel, I played outfield, pitched in high school, college, played shortstop. Um, So I think
And
it's
she
good.
was wicked good at it too.
What pitching? What pitching?
The shortstop.
Oh,
But I think that's huge because it also allows you to see different teammates' perspectives as well. Because when you're in their position, you kind of know what's expected of them there and what they're going through there. And then it kind of just allows for you to fill in for your team wherever you fit. It's not always going to be the same, whether it's game by game, whether it's year by year. It can change instantly, and what makes a great team is having players like that, who can move around, who can give their all in every spot they're given, and learn and adapt quick. So I think it's huge.
that's
And
fantastic. It's a huge puzzle. So it may not be your best position, but it's the best position for the team. I think that's a great point. Sorry, Allie, go ahead.
no, you're good. And I think the one thing I always find funny too when girls are getting recruited, let's say a girl plays shortstop in high school and she's like, oh, well, the starting shortstop's graduating next year, so like the position's wide open. Do you not realize that there's three other backups on the team practicing there for 3 years? So my point is you have to be flexible in what positions that are open for you to help your team. So I guess back to you, KK, too. What do you think being coachable looks like? Or for example, I know sometimes girls we coach, all of us think it's almost an insult when we say, hey, you're going to play here today. That's not their primary position. Like, what is that mindset shift that needs to happen and say, I need to see this as an opportunity instead of, something that's happening to me?
I think I think it goes into wanting what's best for your team. Um, Softball is not an individual sport; it is team based, and it is huge. Like you have to run with that. So I think when you have that in your mindset, that you know what, I got to do whatever I got to do in order to make this team better and fill in whenever I need to. Um, that's what creates a team of leaders because one person starts with that, everyone else starts building off of it, and soon you got a whole team leading besides one or two players. So I think that mindset is just like, you know what, I got to do what's best for everyone in this moment. Might not be exactly what I like, but
Right.
it's what the team needs.
Right. Now, question for both of you now. I'm gonna flip the tables. So I know I
I
remember
have to
so
pay attention.
when I got to college, so KK was a year older than me. She was a sophomore when I was a freshman. I always saw her as sort of a leadership role for myself. So I want to ask both of you, what do you think a good leader embodies? What do you think that looks like, whether it be high school, college? Like, what do you think are the most important traits when we say being a leader?
I think it's just putting the team before yourself in a lot of moments. So it's doing, like I said, doing what's best for the team. But leadership can look different from a lot of people and in a lot of different scenarios. So you have leaders who lead by example. You got leaders who lead verbally. You got a lot of different options. But I think a leader is just someone who is always just like, you know what, I got it. If the moment comes, I got it. Don't worry, I'm going to pick you up. I'm here for you. Whether that's on the field, off the field, I think it's huge to also carry that off the field because people are always looking to see the people they're looking up to, what they're doing off the field, what are they doing on the field. Um, and it takes a lot of integrity too to do that because what are you doing when no one's looking at the same thing?
Mhm.
And that just builds that character there. And once you have that instilled in you, like that's something people are going to notice.
Technically, I could just say ditto, right? Am I allowed to say that, or
Yeah,
do I
no,
have to?
she did. Yeah, I loved everything she said. So yeah.
Yeah, I did too, and I'll just, of course, I agree with all that, and I'll just say a few of the phrases and words I like to showcase as far as being a leader. I think you have to practice what you preach. And you said some people lead by example, some people lead verbally. That's fine, but you still have to practice what you're preaching or leading to other people. And I don't think you can ever take things personally because if you're a leader, if you're trying to be in the front, or I don't want to say be in charge, but if you're taking a role where people are looking up to you, there's going to be criticism coming your way. So, you know, uh, try not to be emotional about it. Try to keep it in perspective and don't take it personal. And the last thing, again, I'm just phrasing it differently than you, KK, is you have to lift others up. If you're talking behind people's back and you're the whisperer and you're the complainer, you're not leading, you're just part of the problem. So
Yeah.
I think now KK and I could write
So
a book on leadership.
yeah.
Oh, let's do it.
And
All right.
I know we've talked about this a little too, and I have thoughts on this, but how do you do that when you're struggling? How do you lift
Yes.
others up when you're having personal struggle?
And that's where it usually goes
Hmm.
south, right? For
Yeah.
most people. So
Or
yeah,
that's
I'm
where,
interested
yeah,
in this one.
yeah. Okay. I'm gonna give that to you.
I think tough one.
Yeah.
But I think that's when you kind of just step back and like self-reflect. So wanting to be a leader, that's when you think about how you're putting the team first, right? Are you going to keep digging yourself in that hole and let your body language and what you're doing affect the others around you? Or are you going to be like, you know what, I'm struggling, but I know my teammates are going to be there to pick me up. While I do that, what can I do to help make them better while I'm trying to fix what I'm going through? Um, so having those conversations with them and like, even though you're going through something tough, like that shouldn't change how you're helping those around you. Every Because at that point, like you said, if you're not building people up, that's not a leader. So if you can't do that when you're struggling, what good is that going to do? I think you've got to continue to dig deep, even though it may be tough, and just keep doing what you're doing and building them up with you.
And I think it's amazing too as a leader when you are having personal struggle, right? If you're lifting people up all the time, what goes around comes back around. And it feels so like amazing when your teammates come there and are there for you now. Not that that's something they need to do, but it's just like, wow, I really appreciated that. And now it makes me want to do it more. And it's just this full circle effect of, okay, no matter if I'm struggling or not, I can add value in other ways. I can help my team in other ways. I can lift somebody else up, even though when I'm struggling, if they hit a double and I struck out, good for like I want that for them. Somebody else succeed. You got it. You got it. Like just that endless cycle of wanting the best for each other. So I definitely agree with
Oh yeah.
That selflessness. Sorry.
you.
Uh
New word alert.
well, definitely, yeah. Definitely, I think can get you out of your bad moments and struggles quicker because you start realizing your whole identity is not your performance, right? Your whole identity is being a good teammate, like you mentioned earlier, KK, and rooting for others and lifting people up, and that's the name of the game. And if you can't love that part of the process as well, uh, maybe you shouldn't play. I mean, maybe that seems a little harsh right then, but people forget that because I mean, I'm talking to two retirees right now.
Yeah.
You'd give a lot to go back to those days and play a
Oh
few
yeah.
more games, and it's easy to forget that when you're there.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then pivoting a little bit from that, talking about being retirees, KK, I want to hear how your coaching's going.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Hard pivot. No, I get it.
Yeah, so at first, yeah, I love it and I still love it.
Yeah.
I think it's something I'm going to keep on doing for a while. But it's very different from being an athlete to being a coach. And I think that was something that was like hard to recognize at first. And I'm like, well, you know what? Like, why can't they just understand it? And then I look back and I'm like, you know, it's a process. Like, it's something you got to put time and effort into. And I just like remind myself, like, you have to show up, whether it's from the coaching side or whether it's from the player side. Like each day, it still has to be something like I used when I was an athlete. Like it's a way to just mentally de-stress, and like I do that with my girls. I help them through that. But overall, I have a great group of girls, and I love working with them, and it's rewarding to see them learn new things and be excited about it and see those little sparks in them. So that's cool.
Hey, that makes me so happy too. I'm sure you're the best coach. That's awesome.
No, I'm saying best coach.
Oh, thanks. So I'm curious, is there anything you've learned, either good or bad, from past coaches you've had that kind of affect the way that you coach? Or you say, I want to make sure I do this. I want to make sure I never do this. Yeah, I'm just curious about that because I know that's different for everybody.
I think for the most part, growing up, I was blessed to have like a handful of great coaches. So I see myself taking a little bit from everyone when I am coaching, whether it's my first travel ball coach, my last one, our coaches at Binghamton, high school coaches, like whoever it is. Like I think I take these little things and kind of twist them to see what works for my girls, what doesn't work for my girls, what individual players can learn this way and what other ones learn a different way. So that's something I'm very grateful for, is having all those coaches throughout my life to help get me here. So it's awesome.
And I think that's one of the trickiest parts too, is learning how to coach different girls in different ways. Because if I think back to the teams I was on growing up, we were all very different in the way that we received criticism, feedback, anything like that. So I don't know, I just try to think about that when I coach sometimes too, how, who does this girl remind me of, and how did my coach work through it with them, and what can I do to help them be their best?
Yeah. What do you think as a coach is like your biggest thing that you try to instill in a girl's mind?
I think one thing that we talk about a lot is just I try to make practices challenging for them, because I think something a lot of young girls do is they go in the cage and they say, I hit 5 times this week. Right, but you left the tee down the middle and then you hit off the machine right down the middle, which is great, like if you're working on something, but I'll set the machine up on like a crazy curveball or do some crazy drills off the tee and say, hey, this is what we're working on today. Let's work through it. Let's fail through it, fail forward. So now, not only are we working on softball skills, but we're saying, I'm working on how to get through my failure in practice, because I don't feel that that's something you can just turn on in a game, right? You can't just have success every single practice you're in and then get to a game and fail and then automatically know how to get through it. You have to practice that too. So instead of going in the cage and the ball's on a drop curve and saying, oh, I can't do this, a pitcher would never throw this, I don't want to hit it, that's too hard. Well, why don't we attack that in practice? Now, when you go to a game, it's going to seem easy. So that's kind of the mindset shift I'm trying to instill in them, help them see. I know coaches did that for me when I was younger, and it was really helpful. So I think to answer your question, that's one thing I try.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is the guy that's never played the game. One thing we work on a lot is
Yeah.
I want the girls to be accountable for their words. There's a couple things. They say my bad a lot, and I've drilled it in their heads so much. If they say my bad before it even comes out of my mouth, they're like, I'll do better next time. I'll work harder next time. And oh, what's the other one? I'm drawing a blank right now.
I'm
Oh,
just I'm just laughing because anytime I'd say that growing up, he's like, yeah, everyone knows it's your bad. You don't need to say that.
yeah.
Like everybody
Uh,
saw that it was your bad. But
I'm
thanks for
I'm
letting us know.
I'm drawing a blank. But anyways, oh I it came to me because you were talking about I can't hit a drop curve, and
Oh,
you hear people say, "Oh, I can't hit the outside pitch," or "Oh, I can't do this." I'm like, no. And before I say anything, they go, I'm currently struggling with that, but I'm working to get better. I just think those are huge mindset shifts. And when they come into the cage after being with their travel teams, and I know not all travel teams are created equal, I'm like, well, instead of trying to say, don't do what your coach said, what are you working on? And they know they better tell me something they worked on in their Sunday practice, or what was the point of going to practice, right? I think people just go through the motions. And KK, you talked about it earlier. You have to have, I wrote it down, the discipline, the motivation, and determination to do it yourself. You can't just rely on other people. So I think that's super important to get people to believe in confidence that way, and go back to your phrase, love the process.
Yeah. And I think going off of that too, with changing their mindset a little bit, which is something I'm teaching my girls now as well. Instead of like saying in the moment, like, okay, don't drop my hands for this,
mhm.
don't swing at balls. It's changing that self-talk that they have. Like, instead of saying don't, say what you need to do. So like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna get a good pitch in my zone, and I'm gonna go after it. See a pitch, drive a pitch, right? So, and changing how they're talking to themselves, so it's more positive rather than negative, um, and just running with that, because that's gonna push them farther rather than like, I can't do this, I can't do this. That's gonna have them playing timid rather it is confidently and whatever they need to get there.
I love that. I think that's so important too, because I mean, I'll be honest, as a hitter, there's sometimes when you go in the box and you're thinking when you're younger, don't strike out. And that is probably the worst thing that you could ever tell yourself, because all your brain hears is strike out.
Oh yeah,
So, and it's something so simple to change. And that's when I give lessons, girls, I ask a ton of questions and they'll just stare at me and be like, why are you asking me questions? But I ask them, like, what are you thinking about right now? and they tell me and we talk about it and I say, okay, well, whatever you're going to think about in your game this weekend, I want you to think about the same thing right now. Because if you're not thinking about anything, just hitting off a tee, and then you go in the game and you get overwhelmed by all these thoughts, again, you have to practice what goes on in here too, not just the physical stuff. So pick what your focus is going to be in the game, and let's do it in the cage right now too, so that it's not the new idea just because you're in a game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Because
Easier said than done, obviously.
yeah, for
Absolutely. But if you're not practicing with a purpose, there's no point in it. Sometimes I think people expect an outcome because of the time they put into something, but the outcome, you really can't measure it. You just have to trust your process, right? And love it for all the reasons you both have emphasized during this episode.
Yeah. And then I have one more question for both of you.
Then we're going to pivot to something different. Go ahead.
What do you feel like are the biggest lessons you've taken from softball that you can see either in your career now or coaching or in your life? Like, what have you taken from playing that you feel has been transferable to help you be successful after your time as an athlete?
I think there's so many. I think all the characteristics or skills that I have learned were all things that I learned through softball. Whether it's how to work well with people, how to come back from failure and bounce back, pushing through things, pushing yourself, how mentally tough are you? There's a lot of different things that happen in life, and that's why I think everything you learn in softball can relate to everything you do in life. But I think those are the skills that athletes are going to remember forever. You know what? Like, I learned this. I learned how to come back from whatever I was going through. I learned how to be there for my teammates. I learned, discipline, like we said, motivation. Those are all skills that you can build from a young age. And I think those are just things that carried on with me, whether it's work now, whether it's coaching, whether it's day-to-day life. But yeah, I think they're things you can't take for granted, and they're going to take you forever.
I never played, like I keep saying, but I've learned when I was watching Alli play, I could never sit behind home plate because I have a better strike zone than the umpire. I've learned that. And then if I went out to center field, it even became better at me calling balls and strikes. No, if you, as a coach, that's all I have. If girls play for me and they haven't learned to advocate for themselves and communicate and understand that it's a process and it's a whole puzzle part of being a teammate and putting everybody in the right positions to succeed, I feel I'm a failure, and I don't necessarily ask them that as an exit question, right? But you just hope they learn the right skills to become successful in everything else they do in life, and most importantly, deal with the adversity.
Oh yeah.
I think the biggest one too with adversity is in softball, like KK, you said you fail more than you succeed. So it's just being forced to pick yourself up time and time again. Now that I'm in life, when I struggle with things, I'm like, okay, it's a slump. I'm in, like, I'm gonna pick myself back up again. I know I'm at the bottom. I'm 0 for 3 today, but I'm gonna get it soon. So I think just training your mind to say, okay, I failed before and I've picked myself back up so many times that it doesn't like faze me anymore. Don't get me wrong, I get upset over things, but it's just knowing like there's a light at the end.
Oh yeah, and I love that and you've always been that person. Like, it's okay. It's gonna get better.
Yeah. Even though on the inside sometimes I'm like,
it's gonna get better. But yeah, that's awesome because it is true. Like, you only go up from there and you learn from those things, and whatever it is, you get through them.
I mean, we've all survived every worst day of our life, right? Because we're here. So
very true.
All right, we're pivoting a little. 2 more questions for both of you as we wrap up. Best moment, best memory, something you'll never forget about Binghamton. You can take it any way you want.
Oh, Binghamton. I love that place.
I know, me too. I got one off the top of my head if you need it.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and we've talked about this before, being surrounded by so many people at once. Because if you think about it, and I've realized this now that I graduated, I'm never going to be surrounded by so many of my friends at one time in my life. And that's hard to swallow. And we talk about taking stuff for granted, like those little moments every day of just in the locker room at practice, studying together, being home together, watching TV, making dinner together. Like you're never going to be surrounded by that many people who have a common goal, who have a strong work ethic, who have similar traits as you. And I think that's something that's really, really valuable. So I think as important as softball is, you have to pour time into your connections while you're in college too, because there's so many people I met at Binghamton who are going to be a part of my life for a really, really long time. And I don't know if that's necessarily a favorite moment, but that's just when I think about Binghamton and my time in college, that's something I think about really often.
No, yeah, I completely agree. And I think mine is based off the same because, like you said, like even when you wanted to be alone, sometimes you were never alone because you just had so many friends around you.
Yeah.
You'd be like, hey, want to do this? Want to do this? But I think about one of my favorite times, which obviously was COVID wasn't fun that time for all of us.
Yeah.
But I think like seeing how much like we loved and cared for each other, the team, and we're just like, hey, like we don't want to be alone right now. And everyone, whatever we could do in the moment, we are just like, let's hang out, whether that's over the phone, whether we're just talking, seeing each other as much as we could. I think that was just like an awesome time. And that really showed like once all that was all over, like, dude, we love hanging out with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I think building those friendships and like you said, like those people are going to be in our lives forever. Like I know for a fact, like when I go back to Binghamton, like there's always going to be someone there like, oh, hey, want to grab some lunch? I'm in town. Like, what do you want to
Yeah.
do? Like, so
Yeah.
many people, and that's everywhere. And I know we just talked about it. Like we have so many different parts of the country to travel to. So
Mm-hmm.
those connections we built were just like awesome. Like we were truly a family. I tell everybody that now. Like, no,
Yeah.
our team was truly a family.
Yeah.
And I just love the whole culture of it. It was awesome.
Speaking of, I need to book a trip to California soon, so
Yeah, you do. I'll go to Chicago.
yeah.
I got thinking our high school team takes a spring trip every year. Maybe next year,
Oh,
come out to California. That might be. We go to South Carolina or Virginia, but maybe
I
not
think
that
it's time
far.
to come over here now.
Hey, to end though, do you think that's why both of you are still involved in the game for exactly what you just said?
I 100% think so.
hmm
I think like for me, I was like, dude, there's no way I can let this go.
yeah.
after, after graduating, you're kind of like, ooh, that ended kind of fast. Like, I don't know what life is like without all this. And even though it is a little chaotic, like, I don't know what I would do besides doing that because, like we talked about, it's something you gotta love. So I agree that it
I
is.
think it comes from that too. And like KK, when I think about you, like watching you play, it was so obvious that you loved it too. So, and I think that's the perfect people to coach because you don't want a coach who's just like, all right, here we are again. It's, hey guys, welcome to practice today. Like, I'm happy to be here too. So, like, that makes me so happy that you're coaching, and I love that. And I think you just have to love it. And like you said, it ends really fast because once you play your conference tournament, wherever your journey ends 2 weeks before that, you were in like the prime time of your career in postseason. And next thing you know, it's like, all right, so I don't really know what to do. Um, and I always joke that the first time I went to the gym after graduating, I'm like, I feel like a kid in a candy store. I don't even know what to do. No
Oh
one's telling me what to do anymore. But yeah, I agree. Coaching has just been really special, and it makes me happy that we're both doing it.
yeah, that's awesome. I love that for you.
I'm so excited. I remember from Allie's recruiting visit when we were allowed to come watch games to watching you guys play together. It was neat for me, from my perspective, to see she was at a place where I knew she was going to meet a lot of good people. And I can't believe we're talking on a podcast now.
It's
What a
crazy.
Time
crazy
flies
way.
by.
Who would have thought? Yeah, when I reached out to KK, we hadn't talked in like a few weeks, and I texted her. I'm like, "Hi!" Immediate FaceTime call. I'm like, "Hi."
And I was
I
so
was like,
excited. I was like,
I said I was not even like 10 seconds. I said hi. I didn't even know it sent yet, and my phone was buzzing. I'm like, oh my God.
That's so funny.
But that just speaks to the type of relationship that we have too. It's like I could call her tomorrow and be like, hey, I have this problem. Can you help me? And she would drop everything and try to help me. And I think that's just really special to have people like that in your life.
Oh yeah, and that's all. Like I could say the same for you. Like
Mhm.
Alli's, ever since I've known her, has been there through every single moment, and like she's the type of person like you need me on a flight to California, I'm on my way.
Yeah. Like, you want to drive there? Would be faster.
Need more Allies in the world.
No,
Well,
KK too.
this has been fantastic. First guest in the books, and we
Thanks,
expect
KK.
you to be we expect you to be a return guest as we get going, and
Yeah.
Of
maybe
course,
maybe,
yeah.
maybe someday we can do a big live episode with a lot of your teammates or something.
That would be awesome.
Wait, ex teammates, or are they still considered
Oh,
teammates?
They'll always be teammates.
teammates.
Okay, okay. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean
Ex-teammates seems like there's beef between us or
Yeah.
something.
that.
Well, let's not make that a thing.
I don't like
Former,
that.
now former. Okay, just teammates, right? Is that
Yeah.
what we're settling on?
Yeah.
Just teammates?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's not
Well,
overthink it. We have a tendency to do that, the three of us in
Yeah,
this conversation.
keep it simple.
when this journey has taken you two to a lot of great places, and I was a guy whose daughters were supposed to grow up to be golfers. So the fact that now I have the opportunity to play golf, but I'm still coaching softball is just a testament to how fantastic the game is. So
No, but I think too, like all the traits we've talked about today, I learned them from somewhere, and it was a lot of them from you and mom and my family. So shout out to you too. Even though you've never played, you kind of did through me. So
every pitch,
oh, there
except when you didn't
re
swing.
real quick story, super quick. So I remember vividly. I don't know if it's a travel tournament or my first year in college. I struck out twice in a game. And after the game, I could see he was like looking at me on my walk up. I'm like, here we go. He goes, what happened today? Like, what was that? I'm like, I don't know, Dad. She just got me. She was better than me today. And he did not know what to say.
He
I'm
was
like,
like,
she just,
okay.
I'm like, she just got me. He's like, all right.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole
Like,
nother
what
episode.
I'm gonna say, the angle of my bat was 5 degrees too low. And
But that's a whole other episode. Sometimes that happens. I'm sure
yeah,
KK's father was always perfect to her while she played. So
yeah.
My dad was actually, he was pretty good.
yes. Yeah.
No, and so were you. I'm just kidding. I'm totally.
There's no better feeling than watching a son or daughter or any type of
Yeah.
person you love play the game. So I miss that, but we're moving forward and trying to make a difference still coaching. So thanks for being on. And
Yes.
it's a little earlier where you are right now. So enjoy the rest of your evening. Mine's about coming to an end.
Thank you,
Hey,
guys.
you know what? Real quick, we're all in different time zones.
Look at
Oh.
us go.
Random facts about nothing, so.
But it's awesome.
All right. Hey, take care.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone. Thanks, KK.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.